Welcome to the Home Loan Hub, your ultimate guide to mastering the world of home loans and property. I'm Zibuni Salimova, here to simplify the complexities of real estate and provide you with expert insights and the latest trends. Whether you're a first-home buyer, an experienced investor, or simply curious about the property market, this podcast is for you. Join me each week as we unlock the secrets to property success and help you make informed decisions. Let's dive into the world of property together. Hello and welcome to Anastasia Bennett. Hello, Anastasia.
Hi.
How are you? I'm good. So good to have you today on my podcast. Thank you so much for coming in. And we were going to talk about a few things. You are a good friend of mine, a client of mine, and we've known each other for many, many, many years. Funny enough, I remember actually how we first met, and I'm not going to say that yet. I wonder if you remember how we first met. But
no, I don't.
You don't remember? Funny. You were saved in my phone because when I meet people in a certain setting, I save them. Like I save their name and I save the reason why, how I know them. So you saved in my phone as Anastasia Books. It was a time when I, silly me, decided to have a business of bringing Russian books and selling them in New Zealand. And I imported a whole container of books to sell. So, and I put it out through the community saying, I've got books to sell. And then you reached out to me and you came and you bought some books from me for your daughter. That was like 8 years ago.
Did I actually physically come and meet you?
Yes, that was 8 years ago. And we met in Titahi Bay. Seriously.
I don't remember that at all.
I know. How crazy. But yes, this is how you saved in my phone. And this is how I knew you. But then obviously, fast forward a few years later, we've come across each other again, which is really cool. And you're absolutely fascinating person. And I needed to have you on my podcast to share the message of hope, because to me, you just symbolize that and your journey. So let's go with your story and where you're from and where you're at right now. Take it away.
All right. So I'm Anastasia Bennett and I live in Wellington. Moved to Wellington from Auckland back in 2011, but before that moved to New Zealand in 2003. That's where my parents decided to move. So I'm not imported wife. Actually,
important wife? Did you just say that? I'm not an important wife.
I did. That's a joke between me and my husband when he introduced me to his friends. Still, 15 years later.
Russian bride.
My imported wife. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Russian bride. Yes, that's how I get introduced still.
Okay.
15 years later. Yeah. So anyway, my parents decided to move back in 2003. And back then, my dad got residency. So he got the job offer, he got residency, he done whatever needs to be done, came, did study, pass exams, whatever. And so I was 19 and I was at uni. I had a full-time job back in Moscow. I did not want to move. I had friends and life and whatever. And my dad said, hey, come to New Zealand. I've got residency because you're under 21. You can get residency automatically as a child. So come to New Zealand, do a little bit of English, then you can go back. I was like, sounds all right. Like, how many months? He's like, 3. I was like, okay, cool. So I said bye to uni. It was, I think, July or something. I was like, I'll be back to uni, in whatever, October or something. And that was fine until we came to New Zealand. And they said, well, if you want to go home, you need to find a job, buy a ticket, and then you can go back home.
Wow.
And I was like, oh, cool. So that was a little trap.
It trapped you.
Yeah, I guess. Trapped me. Yeah, that's right. And so I started working as a dishwasher, washing
dishwasher.
What else can you do with no English?
Yep. Yeah, we had to do what we had to do.
Dishes, but
yeah.
Exactly. I couldn't speak any English whatsoever, like zero. And I remember going to one of those coffee shop at the mall back in, I think it was Mission Bay, asking for a job, couldn't speak any English. And the guy who owned the thing, I'm not going to say nationality, he couldn't speak English either. So that's the probably reason I got the job. We kind of managed to figure out how much I'm going to get paid and what I need to do. And that's where it all started. And then kind of slowly moved on into, doing waitressing and things like that. So that's how my journey in New Zealand started. And that was 2003. So like 21 years ago. Fast forward now, I own a couple of businesses, and me and my husband, we own 4 properties as well. And that's why we're here, right?
That's why we're here. That's why we're here to talk about it, because obviously, I see some clients that have a helping hand from their parents. They get a gifted deposit or gifted equity, etc. You didn't really have that advantage. You had to work hard and save money. So can you take me back to your first property and how did that happen? And why did you even buy a property? I mean, why would you even think about buying a property at that time?
Yeah, so my first property, my actual first property before my husband was with my ex-husband. And so I walked on that marriage with nothing. I left everything, absolutely everything, to my ex. Then time went by, I met my husband, and so I didn't have any deposit. I didn't have nothing. I had my car. And my parents couldn't help either, because when we moved to New Zealand, we literally had $1,500. That's it. And that was money to buy a car for Dad to get to work. And we just had to figure out how to grow from there. So anyway, but what I had is desire to work hard. I still had a goal to buy a house, not to be statistics or anything like that. So when we moved to Wellington in 2011, me and my husband, he actually already had a property in Auckland that he somehow scrambled to get. Again, he was very young when he got it. He got flatmates to help him to pay. I think he sold his car to scramble some money together for deposit. And I was like, we're talking back, it was just over 200K for property or something like that,
Yeah.
These prices don't exist right now. So when we got together and we moved to Wellington, we actually were so broke. I remember our food budget was $150 a week. That's it. That's all we could afford. So we had to build ourselves up. He rented out that property in Auckland because he couldn't sell it. It was like in the bed, not great. It was like a block of units. So he kept it, let it sit there, rented it out. And what we end up doing is we started a business, a gym in Wellington and Porirua from the scratch, had to borrow some money. I don't know how bank gave us any money because we didn't really have any assets or anything, but somehow we both had good full-time jobs, both working for government at that point. And so, we got a loan, opened up the business, and then we decided to approach our landlord that we were renting house from for rent was $270 a week or something,
Wow.
back then. Ask her if she will sell it to us. And there was real small house, 2-bedroom, tiny, like kitchen on the top of the lounge type thing scenario. And she actually said yes. And we managed to convince the bank. We went to so many different banks because they kept saying, oh, you're in the business, you won't be able to, it's too much risk. And had to jump through so many hoops to buy that small thing. I think we bought it back then for $275K or something.
Wow.
In Whitby, in Porirua.
You can't even buy land for this price now.
I know, right? That freaks me out because all I can think about, oh my God, when my kids are ready to buy, how?
Yeah.
And that's why we've got so many properties now that we go, okay, well, this is how.
Yeah.
Right? We're going to help somehow for them to get there. So anyway, we lived in that property until we had our daughter, which is nearly 10 years ago. And we realized that little thing is not going to serve us and so we started looking for another place. We found another house in Porirua as well, which was way more in price. We managed to sell at that point house in Auckland, which made some money, so we could use actual deposit. Because when we bought our property in Whitby, we didn't have any deposit at all.
So
we
you
kind
use
of
the equity of the Auckland property
equity in Auckland.
to buy the
So
whipping.
that property grew. Yeah. So it grew over the years while we were renting it out. And the reason we were broke because we had to top it up, that property in Auckland all this time. We had to renovate it constantly. There were tenants that wouldn't pay rent, so we would have to cover it. It was nightmare. Like, it was hard time to get through, but I think it was worth it looking back, because we wouldn't be where we are now if it didn't happen. And so sold that property in Auckland, put that as a deposit. It wasn't much, but it was some deposit to get property in bigger property for us, for our family. Sold our house for the same price to what we bought in Whitby. So the house we got was 465,000, I think, back in 2016 or something. And then in 4 or 5 years later, I think it was more like 4 years later, we decided to move my parents from Auckland to Wellington, because they were renting in Auckland, and they were going to demolish their house because they were building motorway or whatever in that area. So my parents had to look, and we said, well, how about we move you to Wellington and we'll buy a house. That was kind of like a compromise, negotiable thing to buy a house. So we end up using the equity in our house to buy property in Paraparaumu Beach.
Mm-hmm.
Again, didn't use any deposits for it, just used equity, but our income wasn't enough to buy it. So we used my dad's income to buy property. So we went halves. So my parents own half of that property.
Nice.
And we own another half.
Are they good tenants?
And then they pay rent.
Well, that's a bonus. Okay. And then from that one?
In 2020, I don't know, my husband was like, oh, let's just have a look if we can borrow more money and see what we can do with it. So we did. We got pre-approval. And then I was driving, I think I was dropping our OP to airport or something like that. And I got a phone call from him saying, we bought a house.
Awesome.
I was like, what? I was like, what kind of house? What is it? And it was a very unlivable property, but with big land. It was that unlivable that we couldn't get proper insurance. We had to get a builder's insurance because it had to be fully renovated, had to change the roof, all the walls, new kitchen, flooring, absolutely everything. It was rotten. The old owner was living in it, was cooking on like a, not barbecue, but the other stove, not like a normal stove inside. So they were also black.
Wow.
It was great. It was unlivable. So my husband and my dad renovated the house fully. And then we've subdivided that land. It took us 2 years or something, if not longer, to subdivide it, then build another house. So we bought it at the end of 2020. Took us about a year, maybe 9 months to renovate, tenanted front house. And then in 2023, September, so like 3 years later, that's the second tenant that went into the back house, that, the new build. So that was a really long and painful process. But now we have 4 properties. So we have house we live in. And the thing is, like, our house, our personal house is not massive. It's just normal, small, 3-bedroom plus office house, like nothing fancy on the main road, not the main road, but, it's not like mansion or anything like that. But that's the choices that you make, right? Like, we could have gone for huge, beautiful home, but then potentially we wouldn't be able to have all the other properties.
Yeah.
And we still top up our rentals, definitely, because of the high mortgages and everything. So, but I look at it this way. I could be topping it up $2,000 a month, or I could be putting it aside as a savings. But in 10, 20 years, will my savings grow or will my assets grow? Because we know property double in 10 years.
Such a good way to look at it. Such a good way to look at it.
And then in 10 years, if our assets doubled in value, then we have that extra equity that we can use to get more properties.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right? And the reason we kind of looked at it and went that way is so then when our kid's old enough, yeah, we're not going to say, here's your property, enjoy it. No, we might say you can rent it
You can buy them
and get flatmates.
You can buy them one-way ticket to Russia. Imagine that. That'll be funny.
Go learn.
And they'll have to
Go learn how to survive.
Yeah. They'll have to learn how to survive in Russia and come back to New Zealand. But that's the best way. I mean, you've been thrown in the deep end at a very young age. Funny enough, I came to New Zealand in 2003 as well. So very similar in that sense.
Must be the year.
Yeah, it must be the year of change. And, for you to come here with no English and being told that, if you want to go back, earn money and then go back, perseverance that you had to put through. But I mean, through your whole journey, as I'm listening to you, I'm like, holy heck. I mean, a lot of investors, when they have bad experience with their first rental property, like you guys had in Auckland, they usually would walk away. They would sell the property and say, we're done. We're not doing this again. Like usually people have this romantic idea of, I'll be an investor. I'll have an investment property. The tenant will pay my mortgage and we'll be fine. And they're not prepared for the worst case scenarios. They're not prepared for the bad outcomes. And if that happens, if those bad scenarios happen, they usually walk away and say, never again. But for you guys to turn around and be like, well, stuff happened, was bad experience, but let's just keep going. Like, what are you on? That's incredible.
It's like having babies, right?
Yeah.
You after the first one, you're like, no, I'm not doing this again, and then you forget.
You forget. I mean, obviously,
same thing.
4 kids later.
Yeah. And then the same thing when that happened in Auckland, and we had so much issues with the tenants and how much
what sort of
damage
issues
they made to the house as well.
Yeah. I was just
like they're not paying rent. Not paying rent, damage the house, damage to the point where I had to replace the whole wall and then repaint the whole house.
Yeah.
Yeah, like lots of issue. And at that point, we're like, we're not doing this again. F that, no. But then, and then somehow you forget. And you're like, okay, let's do this again because, we just got money grows on a tree and, we can just keep topping
it up. I love that attitude. Because, let's say it was the one that you guys bought and you had to renovate it extensively and then you had to subdivide it and put another property at the back. I mean, other people might listen to this and go, why are you doing it the hard way? I mean, surely with the same amount of money, you could have bought few properties and not gone down the subdivision route because that would have cost you money as well, right? What's the logic behind that? Or there was no logic and you were just in the moment and you were doing it?
There was no logic. Yeah, there was no logic. My husband just likes looking at properties and go to open homes and auctions and,
And before you know
there was no logic behind it.
Yeah.
Before I knew it, I got a phone call. We bought a property. I was like, cool. Well, I guess my name was on pre-approval. So
you can't play the card off. I didn't know. This is really cool. And I mean, and the other thing that stood out to me is topping up the rentals because obviously now that the interest rates are high, a lot of landlords, I mean, me including, we are pouring money, right? We're hemorrhaging money. And it's really interesting because, you look at the media and they're like, oh, the landlords are the bad ones, and the poor tenants and blah, blah, blah. But actually it's the mum and dad investors like you and I that are the most suffering. It's not investors that have hundreds of properties or 20 properties plus. Like they're relatively okay. But I think it's people like you and I that only have few properties and we have to top them up significantly where we can't just sell one quickly to make up for the other ones. Like, it's really hard to sell one without affecting the rest.
Yeah.
So it's really cool that you're not put off by being an investor, that even though you have to top it up.
Yeah, well, that's why I have 2 jobs, right? So we can top it up.
Yeah, and that's another thing. Like, I don't think people realize that us as landlords, when we have to top it up, we actually the ones working 2-3 jobs as well and running several businesses to stay afloat. Not because we choose to, but because we have to. So it's
exactly
a really interesting balance.
A lot of people just say, "Oh, I can't afford it." And that's all understandable, but I do work a lot. Yes, I choose my own hours when I work, but at the same time, I don't get paid if I don't work.
exactly.
I don't have sick days. I don't have holidays.
I had a joke
I work at night after kids in bed.
Yeah, when COVID hit, I had a joke where people would say, "Oh, have you got COVID?" And I'm like, "No, self-employed people don't get COVID. What are you talking about? I couldn't have COVID.
Yeah,
I couldn't afford to have COVID." Yeah,
exactly.
you have to
Exactly.
get through.
That's what I always say. Like I can't afford to get sick.
Yeah,
I can't. That's why I'm taking all my freaking vitamins and eat healthy and exercise when I can, because I don't have time to be sick.
no. Do you want to tell us a little bit about a couple of businesses that you've got going?
Yeah, so I've got two. One is I do contracting work for the company overseas. I've been working for them for the last 7 years. I do business coaching for gyms and fitness industry businesses, yoga studios, PTs, martial arts, and things like that. So I've been doing it for the last 8 years working for them. Flexible hours because it's just whenever clients available. Most of them are overseas, so I work either late at night or early morning or whenever I can find time to work. I also do audit for the company, so I review other mentors' calls and give feedback and help to improve. So I've been doing a bit of that. And then I've got my own business, which is just gone through the branding, used to call Life Hack Coaching, and now it's perimenopause, wellness, and weight loss, working specifically with women, helping them to balance their hormones, boost metabolism, lose weight sustainably, educating about nutrition and healthy lifestyle and the habits and stuff like that, which I've been in that industry for the last 15 years.
That's incredible, and I know a lot of women. I've met a lot of women that you've changed their lives. So I think what you're doing is incredible, given that you are a busy mom yourself. You've got a couple of kiddos there. Two, yeah, yep, a boy and a girl and a boy, I should say. Because how old is your daughter now?
Yep. She'll be 10 in April, and my son just turned 5, so just started school. New challenges.
Yeah. Especially boys. I think boys are very different.
Yeah. Interesting. I was talking to someone and we're talking about having boys and how busy they are. And she was an older woman. And she just said, you got to run them like dogs. And
I agree.
Stopped for a second. I was like, run them like a dogs. Got it. You got to take them out like in the morning and at night for walks and bike rides and, get them busy so they don't chew things like dogs. I was like, that makes so much sense. And since she said that, I was like to my husband, we're going to get him out of the house. And so he's been taking him out for bike rides after dinner or for walks or whatever, just before bed to calm him down because he's got so much energy. Yeah. It's crazy.
Yeah. Boys are like that.
And yeah. And my husband like, oh my God, he's so busy. Why is he like this? And then mother-in-law comes in and goes, he was just like him.
Yeah, you're exactly like that.
Okay,
too.
Don't blame me. Don't blame me for his craziness. It's you. It's all you.
I love it. Because obviously, I've got 3 boys as well. And and I could never stay home. I remember even with my one, I was always out. And then I had 2 and I was always out. And when I had 3, and I remember taking them to the swimming pool, and my friend was mortified. She's like, how could you take 3 boys on your own? They were 5 age and under. I was like, it was easier for me to take them to the swimming pool and hang out at the swimming pool than being at home. Because at home, they're just in the destructive mode of either eating everything or just constantly, wanting to play with things that they shouldn't be playing with and destroying things. So that's a really solid advice there, I think. Run them like a dog. I'm going to note that down and use it in the future. I've never heard that one before, but definitely makes a lot of sense. So Anastasia, if someone was in your shoes, back when you were, let's say 15 years ago, thinking, should they buy, have they already missed the opportunity because you no longer can buy a property at 270K, and the prices are much, much higher. What would you give them as a piece of wisdom, as a piece of advice right now?
Like looking back, if I didn't meet my husband when I met my husband, and I was single, I would probably would recommend to myself, the young myself, is to potentially go into partnership with someone to buy a house and treat it, because, like a lot of people go, well, as a single it's so hard because there's not enough income or whatever. I would probably explore that option, to go and treat it like a business, buy a house. Yes, you can live in it, but treat it like a business and get flatmates so you can get ahead, because it's really hard right now as a single person to buy a house on one income. Like it freaks me out to think how my kids are going to do it. And for them, like even when they get older, if they're in a similar position, I'll be saying, like, buy a house together. Buy a house together, you two. Get flatmates for the rest of the rooms. Live while you're young. Get your flatmates to pay your mortgage, and then just suck it up for a while. And then once you have equity, you're going to buy another house, and then you buy each other out of those properties. Then you have house each.
Yeah, exactly. I have a lot of siblings actually buying together, so it's really good. But the key is obviously, we're not giving advice here, but the key is to get proper legal advice in the setup, that it works for all parties, because the last thing you want to do is to go into partnership with your sibling, and then your sibling gets a Russian bride, a girl or a boy or whatever, and then they suddenly want out of that partnership and want to go and buy something with their new partner. And that's when things get a little bit messy, especially if the market is not performing where you wanted. Like, for instance, I had lots of siblings buying in COVID times when the boom was happening. And then, fast forward a few years later, they're like, cool, we're ready to now go separate ways. And then they realize they can't go separate ways because the equity has gone down, but one party is forcing the other. So it's just things like this that you got to think through. Right now it may sound amazing, but there are lots of other elements. But it's definitely a great advice in terms of partnering up with someone if you are a single person.
Well, that's what actually happened to us as well. The property we bought in 2020 was just out of COVID when the market was super high. So we 100% overpaid in the current market to what we paid for that non-livable house. Of course, like if we're looking at it now, like what we've done is literally just covering the things. We haven't made any money on this as of now because value's gone down, right? But if we sit tight and wait it out for the next 10 years, that's when we'll see. That's when we'll see actual outcome, the growth, more equity, whatever. But in the current state, we're just covering for someone to live in our house, pretty much.
Yeah.
Just charity work.
Charity work. I love it. Well, hey, look, what goes around comes around. That brings me to the close of this interview. And my final question that I usually ask of people is, what's your motto in life? What do you live by? What are your values and things that you can?
Well, normally what I say, the more you give, the more you get back. Mm-hmm. And this is, I guess, the same principle applies to charity work, to having properties now. The more you give, the more you get back. Like right now, we're not getting anything back. It's all give. And then hopefully later in life, it's when we get back, right? That's when hopefully it's paid off. Yeah. It's a long game, but I've always been like this. The more you give, the more you get back. So I remember even when I was in the gym and we had lots of products selling at the counter where it was like, you just take what you want, you pay yourself free of course, write down what you've taken. And people are like, why are you doing this? People can steal. And I'm like, if they're stealing, they need it more than I do. Yeah. That's it.
That's a really good way to look at it.
And that's kind of helped me not to get disappointed or upset, or when, like when, I don't know, you lose money or whatever, I don't get upset about it as much because it will come back. It will come back in other ways.
Yeah, no, that's good. And what are your goals?
Because the more you give, the more you get back.
The more you get back. Anastasia, what are your goals in terms of property? Where do you see yourself heading?
I don't know. We kind of juggling right now, thinking we don't know if we want to go lifestyle block. We don't know if we want to get a land and then build. I don't know if we want to stay where we are and get another property. We're kind of like sitting like a duck and don't know, can't decide what we want to do because our daughter is going to go to another school next year. So we need to decide and see which school she's going to get into, if it's going to be semi-private, private, or whatever. Just, yeah. Lots of thoughts here, but whatever we're thinking, we're always thinking with thought like, how is it going to benefit us in the future, and how is it going to set us up for the future? Because even the house we bought in, like that we live in now, when we bought it, it was in such a state. It's, we had to do so much to it as well. So I know a lot of people looking for the houses that already made, already ready, just move in, and it was still more expensive. Buy the crappiest house in the best street and renovate it. It took us 10 years to get it to where it is now. It didn't happen overnight. So whatever we decide to do in the future, it potentially might be a rundown lifestyle block house that we have to renovate, live in it, improve. I think that's kind of a long term. So we can open the door and say to our son, just go, run. There's a panic. Go, run.
Well, I guess your mortgage advisor has a work cut out for herself, trying to keep up with all your goals and ideas.
Yeah, still waiting for my email from my mortgage advisor.
Oh, that's
on
terrible.
Pre-approval.
I know.
The next pre-approval.
I know. Terrible. Anastasia, thank you so much for talking to me today and sharing your journey. I think that really hopefully shows people that regardless of where you're from or what background you have, if you've got the perseverance and if you can have that positive outlook onto life, the rest will just happen. Hopefully.
Yeah.
Hopefully happen.
It will.
It will.
It will. Sometimes it's about finding the right mortgage advisor that can help you to jump through the hoops to get where you want to be.
It's the team, right? You got to build a team, but it goes both ways. I mean, look, as a mortgage advisor, I can only do as much as I can. If my clients are not willing to work with me or listen to my advice or see the direction where I'm trying to send them on, it's really hard for me to do my job as well. So it goes both ways. So, you're an amazing human, an amazing client. So thank you for sticking around with me. And I wish you the good day ahead and the rest of the week. Thank you for tuning into the Home Loan Hub. I hope you found today's episode insightful and full of valuable tips to help you on the property journey. Don't forget to subscribe to stay updated on all things real estate and the property ladder. If you enjoy the show, leave a review and share it with others who might benefit as well. Keep an eye out for the next episode where we'll continue to reveal strategies for property success. Until then, keep making savvy decisions and unlocking your property potential.